I'd like to call to order agenda of the Belton City Council work session, regular meeting, December 10th, 2019. We'd like to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Peak.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call?
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop, Councilmember
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Davidson, and Councilmember Peak.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. We'd like to do personal appearances at this time. A, the administration of oaths of 2 new employees for the fire department. So the process, Chief, you want to explain what we're doing?
Yeah, so while I'm talking, I'll go ahead and invite James and Riley up and give you guys a brief explanation. This is a new thing for us, doing a swearing in of our members. Some of our members had it in the past, some haven't, so we've been catching up the entire department with the plan that each time we hire new members, we'll bring them into the first meeting after we hire them and do their swearing in ceremony here.
Come on up
And
here
so
in
these
front.
two represent the first 2 since we started that, and we have Riley Wiegers and James Schuberth, who officially started their duties today.
Breaking them in.
If you would like to step back and turn and face Donna, that'd be great.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James Schuberth,
Riley Wiegers,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Belton,
and the charters and ordinances of the City of Belton,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties of firefighter
faithfully perform the duties of firefighter
during my continuance therein,
during my continuance therein,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Did you get a picture, Chief, or anybody get a picture? We got one, okay.
I can do
Didn't
that
know
part.
that was in
I'll
the
fill out the
contract,
rest
did
of
you?
it for I'll push that back and give you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. Congratulations and welcome to the city.
Congratulations. Good luck. Outstanding. All right. Next, we're going to have a couple of people come up. We're going to have a bunch of people. Would Stephen Poland, Heather Wolverton, and would Brian Wellborn, Terry Ward, would you all come up here, please? I'm going to read from this here. I guess we should probably start talking about the story first, shouldn't we, before we give these awards?
Whichever, we can do that.
Let's do that, and I'll scoot over here.
So on November 26th, we had an event at the community center that one of their customers had a sudden onset of a cardiac issue, and he was working out on a machine, passed out, and so we had another customer that stopped to help him, and Steve, who is an employee there, initiated CPR instantly, and somebody called 911. So what we're doing tonight is they're going to honor these two for first stepping up and helping, and also want to present this as an incident where the chain of survival worked. American Heart teaches the chain of survival, so we had somebody that recognized a problem, quickly took action, started CPR, and then called 911, which brought our crews up. In all honesty, these folks probably would have had the man awake or at least turned around if we weren't so close. They had their AED out. All our park facilities have AEDs in them. And so they had it out, was attempting to put it on, but since we were in such close proximity, Our folks, our crew showed up first, shocked them with their machine, but it's again, one of those things where this scenario went exactly as it was supposed to, and made a difference and made a huge impact in this person's life.
Outstanding.
Did you have some?
Ryan, you're up. You can use that one or this one.
Sure. Obviously, Steve showed up that day not expecting to do what he had to do, and I told Steve all the good things he did. The only bad thing is now after we get, if and when it happens again, after 911 gets called, the next command is go get Steve. But it really did affect him, but he stepped up and you know, we sent him home for the day to reflect, and it was just a couple of days for the holiday, but we, as a staff, we've actually been able to build upon this. You know, as good as things went for us and the crew came in, I told the chief, we've never trained together from department to department, but I've never had to witness that, and I think it went pretty smooth for never having any training. There's equipment available today that I had no idea that was out there. I hope I never have to see that again. But it was a real feel-good moment for all of us. Heather was up there. I think the story that we haven't talked for, but I think she noticed his color of skin was off, and when he went out, she was right behind him. And so she's a member. She was there. Story for the Mr. Nelson is him and his wife always work out together. That particular day, she had a hair appointment. They were going to wait. He went on and came on up by himself, and I'm glad that he did. I think the doctor's credit, you know, he does work out quite often, and that probably helped the situation. So miraculously, he had some procedures done, and he's doing very, very well, and I think we probably expect to see him within the next couple of weeks, according to his wife. So
His wife said he's ready to come back now.
yeah.
That's a big amen. I
Yeah.
tell you, that's a good thing. Terry, Park Board President, you got something you'd like to say?
I just want to say that the training that they do is something you hope you never have to use, and you only hope and pray that when you get yourself in that situation, an emergency situation, that your instinct kicks in, and you guys did a great job. So we're proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, you got to know that this is a big deal, and all of our first responders and everybody played the part, and we're proud of that. And on behalf of the council, we're really proud. This is just encouraging to see how the best has come out and a happy ending so far. We're really happy, and I know that emotionally, that's one of those things you wake up in the middle of the night, and you got to know that it does have an effect, and we're hoping great things. But yeah, Steve, I look at you every time I come in and go, Steve, you're going to watch me a little bit today. So,
I'll do my best.
You've done your best. You've done great. And with that, I'm going to recognize the certificate of recognition. This certificate of recognition is awarded to Heather Wolverton for the selfless and courageous act of rendering life-saving aid on November 26th, 2019.
Thank you.
You take that and we'll look at it. With this one, certificate of recognition, again, certificate says is awarded to Stephen Poland for the selfless, courageous act of rendering life-saving aid on November 26, 2019. And Steve, that's a big deal. Really appreciate you, buddy. On this end, anybody want to say anything else? We're pretty good? Perfect? You guys did great. It really was. Amen. Good stuff. Thank you all very
Can we
much.
do a group shot there?
Group shot closer. Come on in, guys.
I didn't hear it.
This doesn't happen
You
all
can
the
get by
time.
him.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it if you hadn't caught him.
Amen. Again. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
right, with that, I would like to adjourn the regular meeting. With that, we're going to have a reception outside.
Yes.
So we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. So if you'd like to go out, meet our new people and talk to our heroes, you can do that for now. Thank you. Yeah.
He didn't have rubber shoes on. I wasn't on the floor.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order here. We're going to call the work session to order at this time. What's the first topic this evening?
You think I'd be ready, Mayor, but I'm not.
Water infrastructure is what
That's
I
right.
have.
Water infrastructure. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As you're aware, City staff has been reviewing and providing information to the City Council regarding our infrastructure. We have had work sessions regarding transportation needs, stormwater needs, and most recently, I've been made aware of our aging water infrastructure. That would be our drinking water. In researching this topic, I have discovered that there were prior studies performed in 2011 and 12 with information coming back to the council, including a similar report you will hear this evening that occurred in 2014, meaning this information may be familiar to some of you while new to other council members. Don Tyler, our water superintendent, is going to provide information this evening to educate the council and community on the lifespan and condition of our infrastructure. I'd like to ask Don to commence our presentation at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thank you.
Just a minute. Andrew, we don't have image up here on the big screen. I'm so sorry, Don.
Oh, you're fine.
First, is it plugged in?
There, powered up. There we go. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Don, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and thank you for letting us speak tonight about a very important topic to us. First of all, I'd just like to do a brief overview of our water system. As you can see on this slide here, our drinking water system consists of various fire hydrants. We have fire hydrant valves, various gate valves throughout the system, as well as blow-off flushing locations, which is basically a dead end of the pipe. We also have 3 water towers presently, 1 ground storage tank, and we have 2 pumping stations. If anyone sees any questions as we go along, please stop me and we'll be happy to answer those, okay? This particular slide here just represents some of the things that Water Services does for the drinking water system. As you can see, there's various pieces of maintenance that we perform each year. And this particular slide is only for 2019. You can see the roughly 1,200 fire hydrants that we inspect. We've had 6 fire hydrants repaired this year. That's either repaired or replaced. We've also, while we're at the same location repairing or inspecting fire hydrants, we also exercise the valves at the for the hydrants. We also have a gate valve exercising program that staff will go out throughout the entire city and take care of gate valves and gate valve is our main line valves. These valves are what we depend on when we have big breaks. And every break is a big break. So we definitely need these to work. And it's usually in the middle of the night. We also have our dead end blow-offs. Roughly, I believe there was 67 or so on the last slide. You'll see I got 240 there because we do those roughly 3 to 4 times a year. And we also will flush additional dead ends depending on needs from our customers. When water sets at dead ends, water ages. And as water ages, the chlorine residuals that are in that chlorine or in that water will dissipate and can cause contamination issues. So that's why we flush those more often. You're also going to see the drinking water samples that we take. All those samples are guides that we receive from the EPA or the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. So that 360 is just normal samples. That doesn't count for any extras that we may pull throughout the year. We've changed 1,200 meters this year. Total systems roughly, I believe there's 7,800 accounts, I believe, or 7,800 meters. So we just started that program to start getting our meters changed out. Meter pit updates. In the front yard of your home, you'll see you have a meter pit with a lid and ring on top of it and a water meter inside of that. We're also trying to go throughout the city and find places that do not have meter setters. A meter setter is basically made of all copper and it holds the meters. Unfortunately, many years ago, if they just ran 2 pieces of copper into the front yard and hooked a meter to it, that was appropriate. But now we take extra steps to make it safer for the system. We've performed roughly 5,000 shutoffs this year. That's actual trips to people's homes. The first trip is to shut them off. The second trip is to turn them back on. You can see water repairs, roughly 30 this year. We also have city-owned backflows throughout the city. We test those in-house. There's roughly 60 of those. In our backflow program, we roughly have, I think there's 600 to 700 that we take care of, and those are tested by contractors. We also have various painting needs, pressure washing needs, other general maintenance that we do at our pump stations and our towers.
Hey, Don?
Yes?
Excuse me. I've had a couple questions that came up with when you replace the water meters, that before and after there's been a water change. Can you explain to me what might be happening here? They're saying that the bill was lower before, and now it's with the new meter, it's higher.
The actual, if it's residential,
Yes.
okay. The meter changes that we have been doing is we're only changing the top portion of the meter, so the meter body itself is the same. And usually when you have a meter, the portion that slows down is the meter body. That's what has the moving parts inside of it that can slow down with age. It doesn't work like an electric meter. It doesn't have any type of electricity or anything like that in it. The portion that we've been replacing is the top portion or the register. And the reason we were replacing those is because the batteries started dying out on those particular registers. I honestly don't know why the bill went up. I'll be happy to look at that if you want to let me know tomorrow, but honestly, there's not really a reason why it should be going up. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Don?
Sir.
On your water line breaks, is that like breaks in the street, or is that going from someone's house to the main line?
These breaks here are only, the ones that were counted are only on the mains. So that would be the mains in your front yard as well as the streets. The portion from the meter setter to the house, that's the responsibility of the homeowner.
Right.
And
I'm talking
then,
about more about from the meter to the street, or?
yes, sir. We do have those occasionally from the meter itself to the street, and we take care of those as well when we have copper leaking or something. But these here are actually water mains itself.
Okay.
Yes, sir. This map here just gives you an overview of the various types of pipe we have in our system. You'll see there we have the PVC, the ductile iron, cast iron, asbestos cement, and HDPE. You're going to see a lot of red in the center of the city. And our cast iron system is roughly from near Markey Road, which also includes asbestos. You're also going to see asbestos there in the purple. But the primarily area of concern is the cast iron and asbestos, and that runs from Markey roughly down to Cambridge, and then from Cleveland over to South Scott. Yes, sir.
But there's various ones right here. I would assume that PVC was the preferred choice, but maybe it's not the preferred choice? What is the preferred choice here?
Well, you'll see here shortly that there's lifespans for every type of pipe. And of course, we wouldn't want to put a pipe in that's going to last us the longest. Roughly, our cast iron system was installed in the 40s up to the 60s. And then after the 60s, I believe we stopped using the cast iron pipe.
Now, when we put the water tower in, we did a tap there on 58 Highway on the east side there.
Yes, sir.
Now, that's a yellow, that's ductile or ductile iron, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
So that's a fairly new pipe. So it's not necessary to replace that.
No, so there's quite a bit of difference in the ductile iron and cast iron. Of course, cast iron was roughly mass produced throughout the entire United States after World War II. And the only big difference in ductile is the steel is stronger, and the ductile iron has a concrete liner on the inside. So that helps with the pipe deteriorating from soil. So the ductile will last longer than cast iron. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hopefully I answered your question.
Don, you're telling me that our iron pipe, some of it's 75 years old.
Yes, sir. And also out to the right, you're going to see current prices for replacing of these pipes. Unfortunately, overall replacement of the entire system would be $142 million. This also does not include any towers, pump stations, any additional pump stations, any additional towers in the future. This is just, unfortunately, to take care of infrastructure that we currently have in place.
Don,
Sir.
back on the pipe before you run too far. What are you seeing in lifespan for the C900 as well as the SDR21? Because we have a lot of 21 in the ground, and I've not seen a lot of failure. Have you? And then what about the 900?
The biggest failures I've seen with and for people to know, both pipes are PVC type pipe. There's 160 schedule, 200, I believe, 220, 21 as he mentioned, as well as C900. And we have all those types of pipe in the city. They're all in the PVC class. Rough estimations are 75 to 100 years for PVC, or even longer for PVC. And really the biggest thing I've seen is it really depends on how it's installed.
Yeah, you're not seeing a lot of difference, at least at this time span, with the 21 versus the 900.
No, sir.
Okay, that's good information. That's what I've been seeing in industry also.
Part of the biggest benefit that I see between the two pipes is when the C900 breaks, it usually only breaks for a few feet. When SDR21 breaks, it usually splits the entire 20-foot section of pipe.
Yeah, you're split long ways. And how are you seeing the 900, just for a second? How's
Again,
it breaking?
depends if it's installed in rock, if it's
Okay.
not bedded correctly.
What about the compression couplings, where the joints and 45s, et cetera? Any problem there?
I haven't seen any, no, sir.
Okay. That's the same way with the 21?
Yes, sir.
Because that 21 will squeeze down when you go to, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yep. Here we have, talks a little bit about cast iron. We have roughly 22 miles of cast iron in our system. Our estimation for lifespan is roughly 50 to 75 years. The upper right corner, you'll see that's fairly new cast iron. It was really hard for me to find a new picture of cast iron since it's no longer used. So it looks like cast iron to me. On the lower right, you're going to see when we cut cast iron apart and we look inside of the pipe, that's what it looks like. Basically what that is we have a high mineral content in the drinking water here in the city. And it, of course, comes from Kansas City and the good old Missouri River. And that high mineral content interacts with the cast iron itself and causes those particles to form on that pipe. So even though that might be a 6-inch pipe, 50 years later it might be a 2-inch pipe. And that can greatly affect your fire protection. Also on the left, I believe this was on Mill Street.
Was it my yard?
Is that one yours?
It looked like that.
Yeah.
We received a leak, a call for a leak. We dug down, excavated, and then you'll see there's several holes throughout roughly a foot of pipe. When we do a repair like that, especially when it's split long ways, you'll see right there a little bit down a little ways, you'll see a bell. That big part of the pipe, that's a bell. We try to cut it there and then move up to the next, wherever we can find good pipe, and then that's where we'll cut and connect to. Here we have our asbestos cement. Our asbestos cement area is basically Cimarron Trails. And it's called, basically the outer side of the pipe is green asbestos cement, or asbestos pipe. and then it has a concrete liner on the inside. That's where you get the asbestos cement. It was widely used throughout the country at especially government or federal facilities.
What's the danger with that, Don?
I was going to put a slide in here that showed what we have to wear when we work on it, but 4 members of Water Services will dress in white hazardous type suits with respirators. We tape our boots, we take our gloves, we wear masks, we cut the pipe, and everything is disposed of as hazardous waste. We immediately leave the job site, go take a shower after we're done.
And how old is that in Cimarron?
Lifespan is roughly 70 years. I'm not really sure if someone knows when the base was built, but I'd say in the 40s or 50s. I might be
I don't
might be
think the
wrong
base
there.
was open until 55, so.
55? Because I
65 years.
I moved here in the late 80s, and I know they were still doing a few things in and out of there, but all the guard checks were gone and stuff like that. So here we have our polyvinyl chloride, which is PVC. Again, estimated life is 100 or more years. The pipe on the left is a new pipe from a construction yard, and the illustration on the right, you can see the cast iron kind of laying there on the left. That particular piece of cast iron, it took all that pipe before we could find good pipe. That's why that whole piece of pipe's laying there. So every bit of that pipe had blew out on the bottom. And then on the right, that pipe is in service and ready to go. The only other thing we would do to that pipe, we would put rock underneath that pipe, roughly 6 inches down, chalk it in real good with a shovel, and then we put roughly 2 foot of rock over the top of it, and then soil. Here we have a fairly new product that we use now. It's high density polyethylene, or HDPE. We roughly have 4 streets of this type of pipe. Again, it's a decent lifespan, 50 to 100 years. Most people can have seen this type of pipe. It's usually the gas company uses this type of pipe. So you see those large pieces of yellow pipe along the roadways. That's the same product, it's just a different color. This product has been decent for us. We've had good results from it. It does take a little more work to repair it because it actually has to be melted and fused together. And again, we have the ductile iron, 50 to 100 year lifespan as well, and you can kind of see the concrete liner that it has inside of there. And again, that just keeps that water, high mineral content, from corroding that pipe. Also, when this pipe is installed nowadays, we put a plastic wrap around this pipe, and it's also embedded in rock. Unfortunately, many years ago, they laid it right on bedrock, so that soil just eats that iron pipe up. Here we have, this is actually a piece of cast iron that's been removed for replacement. You can see how it splits along the bottom, and again, that's where it comes in contact with the soil. That's why it causes that. Lifespan is roughly 50 to 75 years. Estimations are our current system is 60 to 80 years old in our cast iron system. And there's also other things that can lower your pipe lifespan, such as the higher mineral content. As I mentioned earlier about the installation methods, we do things a lot different now than we did 50 years ago. Strong changes in temperature. Here in Missouri, we know we can go from 60 to 30 in a day. So, wet and dry seasons really affect us. The more wet seasons we have, the more dry seasons we have, they both make the ground move. And when that ground moves, that puts force on those water mains, and unfortunately, that's what causes the breaks. Also, changes in system pressure. Some cities can fluctuate their pressure. For the most part, our pressure stays pretty consistent. And then high traffic loads. If mains are not buried deep enough, very heavy traffic can cause breaks as well. So basically, the challenge that we want to talk about tonight is cast iron replacement and the need for it, as well as how to pay for it. Sometimes when breaks occur, we always forget what it causes to our customers. And this is just a quick, it's not a complete, but it's a quick list of things that we cause problems for our customers. Of course, our fire protection is lost when we have breaks. All of our customers lose water to their homes and their businesses. Many businesses have to shut down because they rely on water to produce whatever product they're selling. We also lose water. It goes down to the storm boxes that we can't resell. We also have to worry about water contamination. We also can damage other lines. You can have a break so big, I've seen it wash out gas mains and electric lines. So there's always a possibility of doing damage to those lines. We can also damage roadways as well as driveways and sidewalks. I've seen cars flooded. I've seen basements flooded. Of course, it also causes us to close roads, which so emergency personnel cannot get through in case there's an emergency sometimes. They have to detour. Also, it causes issues for our hospitals, our nursing care facilities, and any type of treatment centers that we may have in our city. Also, unfortunately, I've had to close school a couple times. I tried to look for some pictures that kind of illustrated what big breaks look like. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find anything for our own city because my priority is when we have a break like this, and I've seen them like this, my priority is getting the main shut down because while I'm taking pictures, I can drain a tower. And if I drain the towers, then we go to an immediate boil order for the entire city. So here's just a few slides just to show you how bad it could get. Now this one here is our own city. Roadway can fall in sometimes. Luckily that was found like that instead of a car in it. I've also seen trees iced up. Depending on what direction that breaks, it can blow on houses, cars, and as well as trees, and it will freeze up in the wintertime. And I picked this one as well because I haven't seen this, thank goodness, before, but this is actually a lobby of a hotel. So once the water is removed, just think of all the other stuff they have to do to get that place ready to use again for business. So, again, here's just a quick overview of the city again, just to make sure you're aware of that. Also, I handed out a copy of that, so you'll have that. We wanted to show the breaks we've had for the last 5 years. We've had we've had 137 breaks since 2014, and each dot, it represents a break. As you can tell, the majority of them are in the center of the city. I believe the count was 115 for cast iron and 8 for asbestos. So 14 breaks of those 5 years were on stuff other than asbestos and cast iron. Just a quick review here. We estimate current pricing to replace cast iron and asbestos cement is roughly $27 million. Back in 2014, we had a presentation done, and it was roughly $26 million for roughly the same area of concern. We've replaced roughly almost 3 miles of pipe in 5 years, roughly 15,000 feet, and I believe we're a little over $2 million for that project. If you remember, we were doing a little bit every year, and over the last 5 years, I can definitely tell a difference in some of our systems. Those breaks are still occurring, but thankfully they've shifted to another street, and so we continue to strive to replace what we can. Over the next 20 years, it's estimated we need $1.36 million to completely cover the cast iron and asbestos cement system. As you can tell there, that's needed for the next 20 years.
So, Don, thank you so much. At this point, it's important to note that in 2014, the city commenced allocating $400,000 a year from Water Department Reserve toward maintenance and repair of infrastructure, which includes water pipe replacement. While we have been, in fact, using these dollars for infrastructure replacement, due to the age and expired lifespan of the antiquated portions of our system, those dollars are no longer keeping pace with the city's need for pipe replacement. And as you can tell from the prior information Don just provided, our city's need is imminent. In preparation for questions you may have for funding, Sheila's prepared what a water rate increase would look like for our customers if the city paid for the infrastructure over 20 years. This would require a rate increase of 10% beginning in fiscal year 2021, an 8% increase in the 2 following years, a 3% increase in the 4th year, and a 2% increase in the 5th year. After the 5th year, future rate increases will be reevaluated to take new infrastructure and growth into account. Please remember this rate increase would be on top of what Kansas City would propose for annual increases. And as you can see, Sheila's prepared a slide. And Sheila, would you mind explaining what this looks like?
So the slide that you have up on the screen right now, we have people that will use lots of different amounts of water. I selected the amounts that I did because I actually pulled each council person's bill from last month. And so, because I think it's good to see like how it would affect each person. The 4,000 gallon amount, that is what the average usage in a household in the city is. That can vary wildly depending on how many people that you have in your house. If you have special valves on your shower and faucets to use low water. But basically, the 0 to 1,500 gallon, our minimum bill is a 1,500 gallon bill. A 10% increase would add $1.38 each month in the first year. And if they had if you use 6,000 gallons in a month, then it would add $6.01 to your bill each month at a 10% rate. And then the next year, fiscal year 22, would be an 8% increase, and it would add an additional $1.21 to somebody that has a minimum bill each month, or $5.29 if they're a 6,000 gallon a month user. And you can see the very last column is the 5-year total. So fiscal year 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25's increase. At the end of 5 years, it would increase a total of $4.79 a month for a minimum bill. What that would do is it would generate the $1.36 million that is needed to replace all of the cast iron and the asbestos cement pipe over the next 20 years. And we would need to kind of reevaluate those rates after 5 years. There's going to be inflation, and there will also be new infrastructure and growth. And so possibly the new infrastructure and growth would possibly offset the inflation amount. And so, hopefully we could keep those increases very low. But you can see this would be doing pay-as-you-go funding, so we wouldn't have to borrow money and pay interest to the bank in order to do these improvements. And it's not really a question of whether or not we're going to do the improvements. Eventually, we will have to replace everything. It's just, can we plan to do the replacement, or is it going to have to be on an emergency basis, which also would be more costly?
So at this point in time, I asked Donna to go ahead and hand out the presentation for this evening. It gives the council something to be able to go back, look at, review, so that you understand it better. As you know, budget work sessions will start January, February timeframe, and this is going to be an item that's going to be on there. And so we wanted to start educating you, and so that you're aware of the situation. My hope is that we could plan for this, that this is a planned approach. It doesn't do large amounts all at once, but it's a systematic approach to be able to start addressing our infrastructure needs. But the truth of the matter is, at some point, if we start seeing excessive breaks and we don't have the funding for it, the council may have to go to the citizens and ask for a bond issuance for the larger lump sum amount to be able to address those. Because the fact of the matter is that our pipes are anywhere from 60 to 80 years old, if not more, and the lifespan on those is 50 to 75. So we are already looking at our infrastructure being out of its lifespan, and as evidenced by Don, showing us tonight, and even the pictures, the cast iron, when it goes, it doesn't just go in a small chunk. It likes to crack and go the full distance. They've done an awesome job with the little that they've had in being able to stay on top of that. But the truth of the matter is that we've been spending our reserves and water account, and those dollars are dwindling, and we don't have the capacity within the fund to pay the cash that we need. And so that's why we're talking to you about various solutions this evening to consider.
Councilman Lathrop.
I have one question. This was, you mentioned Kansas City's increase, and don't they do somewhere between 3% and 5% a year?
Yes, sometimes less. Sometimes they do less, and we have been increasing, except for last year. Last year, they actually told us that they were going to do a lower rate increase than they actually did. And after we approved the budget and changed the rates, Kansas City came and said, just kidding, we're going to actually increase it another %. And we will be asking the council to approve an increase this year to make up for Kansas City's percentage that they didn't do last year, plus whatever Kansas City says that they're going to increase this year. And that is in written in our ordinance, that we will go ahead and increase the amount that our third-party provider increases.
I was just trying to get an idea of the total amount. In 5 years, we're talking about 38% increase.
Yes.
If
Could
Kansas
be.
City stays below 3%.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman Clark.
Don, you've been here for a long time, and I think when I was on here the first time, were we not putting some type of inserts into the water lines over in Lake Lacey and all that?
Yes, sir. The HDPE that I mentioned, that was something that we installed in Lacey. There's roughly 4 streets in Lacey that
That's
are.
it?
Yes, sir.
So that purple or whatever color you put on there?
The HDPE.
Blue? I thought we did like the whole area where we had that company come in like in early 2000s to mid 2000s to put a pipe inside the pipe, so it.
Well, actually, what they did was they ran a cable through the pipe, through the existing cast iron pipe.
Right.
And when they get to the end of that pipe, they cut it, and that cable comes out, and they attach the HDPE pipe to that cable, and they pull that black cable or that HDPE cable back through that old line. And as it's pulled through, that old cast just breaks out of the way, because the old cast was roughly 4-inch, and the new cast or the new HDPE, I believe, is 8. So it's there's a little like a bullet on the end of that cable, and it's shaped like a cone. And as it goes in through that old main, it breaks that old main out of the way and leaves it in place and puts the new HDPE in that place. And then on the ends, it's just reconnected to the existing main, and it's tested and put in service.
So you're saying we only did that back in the day in that little area on Colburn area?
Yes, sir. I believe it's from Park going north to Brookside, I believe, and then from the boundaries were from Colburn over to Lacey.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just remember approving that like 20 years ago or whatever, so.
Other questions, comments? Anything else from this?
I guess my question, is that something that's cheaper we can do, or is that a fix, or is that not a fix? I mean, is that a Band-Aid?
What's that, sir?
What we did 15, 20 years ago?
Uh,
I mean, is it cheaper to do it that way, or is it cheaper just to replace it all?
I mean, that particular product that was installed at the time was new technology. It was lower cost at that time. I really don't have the comparison between the two, but we can look into that.
Anybody? Is that all you got?
That's all we have regarding this topic, Mayor.
Thank you, Don. Outstanding.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
data. Thank you very much. Okay. Next is the rental inspection program. How do we get back to this today? How are we?
Mr. Mayor, at the last meeting, Councilwoman Davidson asked that this be brought back for a work session topic.
Okay. So I guess, in order to lead this discussion, I guess I'm going to ask and to help give direction to staff, we're going to go ahead and ask for, to ask you all what I'm asking is your yes or no response to the following questions. So I'm going to go around the dais and then say whether you want an inspection program or not. So Councilman Winkle, how do you feel? Do you want a rental program or not?
I could support it with changes from what we had before, yes,
Okay.
which is what I said.
Councilman Trutzel?
Yes.
Councilman Lathrop?
No.
Councilman Savage?
No.
Councilwoman Peak?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davidson?
Yes.
Councilman Finn?
No.
And Councilman Clark?
In current form, absolutely not.
The question was for no, okay? And I'll say yes, okay. So, going on. If the city were to do a program, do you want the program to be based upon the honor system of the landlord to report change of occupancy? So, over here, Councilwoman Peak.
No.
Councilman Davidson?
No.
Councilman Finn?
I already said no to the first one, so how do you answer this one?
Councilman Clark?
No.
That's an open-ended question,
Yeah.
Mayor. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
I'd like to repeat that. Would you repeat that again?
Sure. If the city were to do a program, do you want the program to be based upon the honor system of the landlord to report the change of occupancy?
Okay.
And you said?
Maybe.
Maybe, okay. Be down here, okay. Councilman Van Winkle.
Well, I'm not sure I quite understand what the options are there. I mean, you're just saying if we're gonna have it, we won't do any inspection unless the owner reports there's been a change of occupancy, come inspect me? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I mean, I could support that.
Okay. Councilman Trutzel?
I'm a little confused here. Voluntary, I have problems with, well, never mind. No.
Councilman Lathrop?
Well, I'm unsure till I hear, gotta have some more information and
Sure.
I'm just saying, are we gonna depend on somebody to do it? You just wanted an yes or no answer.
Councilman Savage?
I feel like this is a complete divide and conquer. I feel like I'm trying to be led into a slaughter. We're not even talking about anything here. You know, you're piecing this up so you can get some version of an answer with no program whatsoever. So I won't vote on such a thing.
Okay. And change of occupancy, I'll say no also. So Councilwoman Davidson has two suggestions. First one, an alternative may be having every rental inspection property inspected within 2 to 3 years of adoption, ultimately providing a grace period to ramp up, and then inspections at change of occupancy thereafter or. Did I say that right? Okay, any discussion on that? Do we need any right now?
Could you read that again?
I
didn't
surely
get it all
will.
wrote
An
down.
alternative may be having every rental inspection property inspected within 2 to 3 years of adoption, ultimately providing a grace period to ramp up, then inspections at change of occupancy thereafter, or. Okay? Or B would be every rental inspection property inspected within 2 to 3 years of adoption with the grace period, and then inspections occur every 2 years thereafter. Okay? So, go ahead, Councilman Trutzel.
Again, back in my younger years when I had some rental property, I don't have any more now. There are long-term renters and then there are short-term renters. It seems like they're flying in and flying out. So upon change of occupancy, somebody could hit pretty hard for having a house that constantly was flipping over. If we're gonna do this, if we can get in there someplace every year or two and check it out, and you give people and a chance to say 2 weeks from now that we're going to be in the house and it'll look at a quick over there, that'd be fine with me. The ideal, in my opinion, is we want a safe home for these people, and the good landlords, they should say, no big deal, you come look. They shouldn't have a problem with this. It's the other ones out there that don't want you in the house that makes you wonder a little bit. And if you give them 2 weeks' notice, if they got some stuff they don't want you to see, then they can take care of it and get rid of it or hide it or whatever. I don't know. But I think a periodic time period would be sufficient. I'm not sure that every time there's a new occupancy, it needs to be done.
Councilwoman Davidson.
So I'll say something. I wrote up something a little bit earlier. So I voted yes, a few weeks ago for a number of reasons. And really the most basic among those reasons being that rental properties are businesses that require a business license to legally operate. They should be subject to inspections like any other business. Imagine if we did not inspect our restaurants. Has anybody ever read the list of restaurant inspections Cass County publishes? I have. Everyone knows the rules, yet infractions are still found regularly. Those inspections keep people safe. Does anybody remember the Man Cave on Main Street? It's now the Main Street Performing Arts Center. Among other things, inspections and follow-ups were performed regularly to ensure people could find a safe route out of the store in the event of an emergency. When compliance could not be maintained, the council had a public trial within this chamber whereby he was no longer able to operate his business. Are people who rent somehow below the standards of those of us who shop and eat at otherwise inspected Belton businesses? I don't think so. They are patronizing a rental business and deserve the same protections any other business would provide. And to get into the two suggestions I kind of were covered earlier, but I think I can make it a little bit more clear. So I'm suggesting two options. Option one has a 2-year grace period before a first baseline inspection of all properties. Then inspections occur at turnover. Option two, a 3-year grace period before regular inspections occur every 2 years regardless of occupancy status. And I'll just keep on going. So turns out I had a connection at Grandview, and this gentleman was able to provide me all of the documents, including their presentation to their own council members or aldermen. So I wanted to kind of read from Grandview's ordinance, and it is far more complicated and I don't want to say picky than I think what we were kind of led to believe, but I'll just read a few parts that I highlighted. So the purpose and intent of that article was to establish a residential rental and non-owner occupied property registration program as a mechanism to communicate with owners of residential rental and non-owner occupied properties in the city for all purposes, including building code enforcement, and to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of residents of residential rental and non-owner occupied properties in the city by establishing a minimum standard for residential rental and non-owner occupied properties, and provide mechanisms for the enforcement and administration of the code of laws of the city to ensure that the above purposes are accomplished. They've adopted this and are handling it in-house, which is not something that we were proposing. Furthermore, it does not appear that this is actually happening only at turnover, and I'll read you the part past their schedule of fees where it says that. So, all residential rental and non-owner occupied properties are required to be inspected by the enforcement official when a change in occupancy of the residential rental and non-owner occupied property occurs. Upon successful completion of inspection, the city will issue a residential rental and non-owner occupied inspection certificate. The initial inspection and first inspection, if applicable, shall not be assessed a fee. The owner shall be assessed a $100 fee for each subsequent reinspection required to clear a violation. Also, a conditional residential rental and non-owner occupied inspection certificate may be issued by the enforcement official if, in his judgment, any deficiencies in structures covered by the article would not seriously endanger the health and safety of the occupants. A signed affidavit stating that the owner will correct deficiencies within a specified time and thus bring the structure into compliance with the provisions of this article, and a payment of $20 certificate fee. The prospective occupant may occupy the dwelling unit while repairs are being made with a signed agreement prior to occupying the property, allowing any needed re-inspections. At such time and within the period covered by the affidavit, if the dwelling complies with all provisions in this article, a residential rental and non-owner occupied inspection certificate will be issued as provided above. Permits. A residential rental and non-owner occupied inspection certificate shall be issued for 12 months. You have a 12-month period, and this is not in there, I'm just saying, you have a 12-month period that you have your permit, and then it appears that you actually have to have it re-inspected after the 12-month period. So it's not happening just at change of occupancy. Once issued, such permit shall be reapplied for any new occupancy of the residential and non-owner occupied rental. So say you have a permit for the 12-month period, but your renter moves out in 6 months, guess what? You get to have it re-inspected within that 12-month period. That's 2 inspections within a year. As a condition of renewal, said owner or his agent shall permit the enforcement official to inspect the property. Access for purpose of inspections, because I know we discussed how to enforce this. The enforcement official shall make or cause to be made inspections to determine the condition of all structures and premises governed by this article. The enforcement official may enter any structure or premises at reasonable time for the purpose of performing his duties under this article when given permission by the owner, occupant, operator, or person in charge of the structure or premises. In the event that the owner, operator, occupant, or person in charge shall refuse access to any structure or premises, the enforcement official may make application to the judge of the municipal court for administrative search warrant. There's also, I can send this to everybody if they want it, but there's quite
That'd be great.
a fee schedule. Like I said, they're doing this in-house, and they're making a couple of assumptions based to get to their numbers, but it looks like the cost of the inspection with in-house will be about $95,000. And with the certificates and permit fees, they estimate that this program will bring in about $105,000 a year. So really just enough to cover itself. But they're assuming a 40% turnover, which is a really big question mark. The schedule of fees are in here. The only thing that is not in here are the specific tenants that they will be inspecting. It only actually refers to other parts of code that they have to reference for their inspection. So that is actually not in here. And with that, I'll shut up.
Okay, which brings me to our next point, and it's my fault. All council members will have up to 3 minutes to state your reasons why you voted yes or no.
Except for you.
And so you'll be first. So you got 3 minutes that state your reasons why you voted yes or no, and also provide suggestions what you've heard this evening.
You can skip me.
Well, I really want to know what you think.
I am flexible with what we want to do. I have really little issue with us having a provision in there with change of occupancy. I think with change of occupancy, however, me personally would prefer to have an initial inspection for all properties so that we at least have a baseline. And I think if we provide a reasonable amount of time, say 2 years, before this is actually being exercised, that is enough time for folks to bring their properties up to meet these, what I consider minimal standards. There was one other thing I just remembered that I wanted to share from their ordinance, if I can even find it now. But basically, I'm paraphrasing, there is actually one of the last parts of their ordinance where they make it so that, was it Evergy, whatever the utility company, Kansas City Power and Light has to actually notify the city when there is a change in that bill, so that they can note that there's been some sort of change of occupancy, and they can follow up with that, which I thought was very clever, and I had no idea that that was even an option.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, and you were a yes vote.
Yeah.
Hey, Councilwoman Peak, you're up.
Do I only get 3 minutes?
Well, I hope to shout. Did you vote? You were a yes vote.
I was a yes vote. Yes, I was. And I'm just going to kind of go over some information. There are several cities in our region or area that have some sort of rental inspection program already in place or starting very soon. Most have been adopted in the last 4 to 5 years, with one that began back in the 90s. Having rental property is a business for the property owner. The purpose of our inspection program is to make sure that the property owner is maintaining a minimum code health and safety standard of living. That is the cost of doing business. The City of Belton currently has 208 landlord city business licenses. Of the 208, 147 have a mailing address outside of Belton. 61 have a mailing address in Belton. Using just the mailing address for the landlord or landlord company, one would believe this would be where they are physically located. 147 mailing addresses outside of Belton equals to 71%. 61 mailing addresses in Belton equals to 29%. Many of the landlords, not all that live outside of Belton, are known as an absentee landlord. This is an individual, corporate, or state entity that owns and rents out real estate but is not located on or near the property. Unfortunately, Belton is not immune to absentee landlords. We have also heard the term slumlord. A slumlord or slum landlord is a derogatory term for a landlord, generally an absentee landlord, who may or may not live in Belton with more than one property, who attempts to maximize profit by minimizing spending on their property maintenance, often in deteriorating neighborhoods and to tenants that they can intimidate. Recently, if you have watched KMBC News, you have seen where their reporter has uncovered major life safety and health issues at properties associated with the management company, not only in the Kansas City area, but also includes the St. Louis area. For months, tenants were given promises and nothing was done, or they could not get a response to their concern. Many tenants continued to pay their monthly rent and said nothing for fear of being evicted. There were single parents or those on fixed income indicating they had nowhere else to go. The tenants were and are living in deplorable conditions that include leaky faucets, broken air conditioning, water leaks from apartments above that caused ceiling tiles to fall and were not replaced, exposed pipes and electrical wiring, roaches scampering everywhere, not just one or two, but several. No running hot water, causing residents to have to boil water to bathe or wash dishes. Mold growth on inside walls, which our prior recommended program did not address mold, but I think we should take a look at that if we're fortunate enough to have a new program.
30 seconds.
Almost.
There.
These are just some of the issues from the different reports. They are unhealthy and unsafe. These are issues that a rental inspection program would address. During our discussions, it was mentioned that the tenant needed to take responsibility and speak up. I believe Councilwoman Davidson addressed this in her statement read on November 10th. Quote, "Why don't they call and report it?" To that I would say, if we're going to discuss personal responsibility, where is the personal responsibility of the property owner? After all, the intent to rent begins there. The city staff looked at many rental inspection programs in the surrounding areas, and along with the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, spent time in discussions about what our program should look like. As has been mentioned, Belton's program is patterned off of Independence, Missouri's program to meet our need. There are currently 9 pass-fail questions that focus on a minimum standard of living for the health and safety of those that live in our city and rent.
We need to wrap this up.
I'm almost done. Is the program perfect? Probably not. However, the proposed program is a good start. I won't read those things. We have heard landlords say that a rental inspection program will cause them to sell their property. My question is this: what are they saying to us? Are we hearing that they would rather sell their property than make sure their property can pass an inspection of the only 9 minimum health and safety standard of living items that we had on our list? We have discussed how often to inspect the property. I have read many articles on rental inspection programs across the country. As has been discussed, every program is different. Inspections on the average appear to be every 3 years, give or take. For clarification, excuse me, my thought is every 3 years. As our city continues to grow and potential housing developers look at Belton, I would think that a rental inspection program in our city would demonstrate the city's commitment to property management and maintain adequate standards for our citizens and the developments in which they invest. With that being said, I appreciate everyone's willingness to open communication in order to bring a revised rental inspection program to our city of Belton. As my vote will continue to be yes, as I firmly believe the Belton needs this very important program that will help maintain a minimum health and safety standard of living for those living in our city and renting. I'm done. Excuse me.
Wow. Okay. Councilman Clark, you were a no vote.
I was. I think it's just more bureaucracy. I think the invasion of privacy, and I spoke to more renters than I did landlords, so when I've had renters tell me they didn't want someone walking into their home, just like I don't have anybody coming into my home. And I told you from the get-go, if it was done during the in-between renters, that I would agree with something like that. And I talked to Landlord Association, and they're on board with that also. So I just, every house that's sold should have some type of inspection. So there is an inspection done on a house that's sold majority of the time in between homeowners. So I don't know why we wouldn't do the same thing. So I just look at it as just more bureaucracy, and I'd rather let and see it and see how Grandview does for a year or two, and we can always pick it up later. I will save your minutes.
I was going to say she used up all of it. Okay, thank you. Councilman Finn, are you ready? You want somebody else to go first?
My statement's prepared
Okay.
from memory. So I can appreciate your passion, ladies. I definitely can. And I have a heart for people. I definitely do. But at the same time, I have to say, we may pass legislation, yet I'm not for more of it. I think we have an opportunity for what we have already, to be able to enforce the codes that we do have. And honestly, I think it begins a lot with the outside of our properties. And so if we're taking care of those, usually the remainder takes care of itself. To address the interior portions of homes, most times the lack of the condition is due to the lifestyle of the person occupying the property. Not always, I'm not going to say that, yet a lot of times it is. So that can lead to a lot of dilapidation of the property. Like Councilman Clark said, as far as when a property does sell, it is inspected. So when that does happen, like everybody else that is a homeowner, the property will be inspected at that time. So having said that, I'm not for another piece of legislation here to pass something else to slam down the throats of our investors within our community. I definitely understand the absentee piece of it. I would like to see out of the 147 that aren't actually local or within the city limits of Belton, how many of them are actually in the Cass County area, or maybe even the metro area, like within a 20 or 30-minute drive. Now, being in the community is important, absolutely, yet we know not everybody's going to live inside the city limits. I'll finish there.
Thank you. Councilman Van Winkle, you were a no vote.
There's several things here that concern me, but the problem I have is the fact that we look at this and we're gonna go, okay, this is gonna make a lot of things better. But just listening to Councilwoman Davidson's description of what Grandview's doing, it sounds pretty complicated. And we're trying to piecemeal something together here that's pretty complicated, and I think we're gonna end up, if we do vote for something and pass it, I'm afraid we're gonna come up with something that's gonna make the trash issue look like small potatoes. That's not to say I couldn't support something. I just don't see a viable product here to support. I could support something that had a 2-year grace period for the owners. I could support even allowing them to, during that grace period, not, assuming they have good property, they could go ahead and get their inspection done right away when it's vacant. I could support any inspection during the time when the residents are vacant. I think after the thing's been inspected, just because a change of occupancy happens 6 months after we've already inspected, I don't see a need to go in there and re-inspect. I'd say if it happens, the occupancy changes in that first 2-year period after the inspection, if we're gonna look at inspecting every 2 years or every time it's unoccupied, then I'd say they get a waiver until the next time it's a change of occupancy happens outside that two-year window. I did speak with the person in Grandview at one time about this program they had, and they did get with the electric company and find out how to. They basically established a program with the electric company's attorneys involved, and with the city involved, explaining what they needed. There's no personal information passed on. It's just when power's shut off and power's turned back on, then they're notified, hey, that this happened at this residence. So they can go out and check, and if they're on the list of a rental property with a landlord, then they can go out and check with that landlord. There was concerns also with the fact, and this is part of the reason, the reason they chose to go with their own inspection people within their city was they found out some of the areas that had rental inspections. I don't want to name a city because I could be wrong on which one it was or which few it was, but the inspectors were actually landlords themselves. They went out, became inspectors, and there was concerns that people would either be inspecting their own or they would be inspecting each other's and possibly not being on the up and up anyway. So.
You done?
I'm done.
Thank you. Yep. Councilman Trutzel, you were a yes vote.
I think I pretty much used my 3 minutes up earlier. You know, I actually can understand Councilman Finn's comment about renters. I should say some renters. I've had experience with that. But at the same time, the renter that's tearing up the property is one that should be kicked out and removed from this premises. It's not doing the landlord any good. One of the basic problems we had, I think, as a council here is the inspection and when to do it. Probably, in my opinion, the one that would be kind of the most agreeable one would be the one when there's vacancy. I think also the landlords need to understand when a renter comes in and you say, you rent from me, that's fine, but I want you to let you know that there's going to be an inspection. There's going to be a time when we're going to come in and look the house over and check to make sure everything's fine. And right up front, they need to tell them that. And so they expect it when they get it, so it's not going to be a big shock to them. And I would say that the people who are good landlords, it's not going to be a problem. I did have a comment. Somebody was really concerned about having a carbon monoxide receiver in the house. And all I would say to them is this. You have one accident happen, and the lawyers are going to have a field day with that owner of that property. He will never own anything when they get done with him. So, you know, sometimes some of these things are preventative instead of the end result. Thank you.
Councilman Lathrop, you were a no?
Well, I have to agree with Councilman Clark and what he said, so I won't repeat that. And I like Councilman Davidson's a two-year grace period, and then upon change of occupancy. And then the other thing is if it changes before the 2 years, then we need to decide on that.
Thank you. Councilman Savage, you were a no?
Okay. I've only got a couple of things, but each time you've asked us and you told us how we voted in the last vote, I was told in the last, when it was voted down.
Yes.
So we're referring to exactly what was voted down. So my first concern would be, since we're referring to that bill exactly, how did it get brought back up by a non-prevailing, on the non-prevailing side? And we can in fact discuss it, which Patrick called me today. We talked about this, but Patrick, it appears to me this has been brought back in. I apologize for saying they. I should not have said that. It seems to me that we're talking about the same bill that got failed and should not be brought back up unless it's by the prevailing side. And I've been there before, so I need that explanation first.
Yeah, and I believe that the mayor is referring to that initial vote that was taken here about whether or not somebody wanted just a rental inspection program, period.
Excuse me.
I think that vote fell on the exact same lines as the previous vote, but I think the discussion today has been about a separate issue. And you are correct that for the previous ordinance that was voted down, for that to come back, a council member that voted on the majority would have to bring that back at either that meeting or at the next succeeding meeting. So we're already past that reconsideration period because it can't be brought back. The next succeeding meeting was that past meeting. I think, again, the discussion today is outside of that reconsideration ordinance, that's section 2-100J, because we are no longer talking about the previous bill. We are talking about what could be entirely different program, rental inspection programs in general, not that ordinance specifically. So based on my reading of the city's procedures, which the main one at issue here is the motion to reconsider, this would not fall under a majority member has to bring it back. I think this would be this is a new discussion, separate and apart from that previous bill.
Thank you. I think the only place that tied it together is the votes did not come in. They come in the way they've been called off was exactly the way the votes come down on that bill. It was not the way that it voted here tonight to say, let's talk about it. To decide whether to talk about it. I know at least one council member was told that he voted no, and in fact tonight he voted yes, which confirmed the fact that we're talking about the same bill.
I'm not sure which.
It doesn't matter. You can look at the tape and see that.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
I'm
not going to name.
I apologize.
names,
I just thought it was the same as the.
but I believe that. So I believe that's the case. Thank you for allowing me to say that. Thanks for clearing up where we're at or where that we are supposed to be. Secondly, a next piece is. I'm not sure, and Patrick, this might be to you also, I'm not sure how the city plays with the state laws in respect to this subject, but I know for a fact that once a property is rented, the property owner cannot do certain things, in fact, most things. It actually belongs to the person that's leasing or renting it at that time. For one thing that a property owner cannot do is go in and remove. You have to file suit and go through the proper procedure, which would be proper. Given that said, I'm wondering, for very serious wonder, I'm satisfied that the landowner cannot give permission, thereby being, by law, by state law, how are we going to get around that if this was put into play?
And I think, again, there's I don't want to reference the previous bill because that bill is dead, but I think under the typical rental inspection program, the other cities, specifically Independence, Grandview, and Gladstone has done it as well. They get around that issue by either doing it, one, at change of tenant, which was discussed today, because obviously if there's no tenant, the landlord does have all the authority to let somebody in to fix whatever.
True.
Secondly, I do believe that the city's access can be granted via either permission or it could be through an administrative search warrant. That could be done as well. I think your question, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your question relates to if the city determines that there is an issue with the property, how can the landlord then go in and fix it if there is a tenant living on the property at that time?
No. I think that what's being required or requested at some point here was that the property owner would cause an inspection to be generated and would have to enter that home, and the point is that the property owner does not have the right to not only enter that home and also doesn't have the right to issue someone permission to enter that home. It has to come from the person that's paying the rent because they are in fact owners of that property until in fact they're removed through the legal system.
And I think the common way, again, is either the administrative search warrant process, the permission process from the tenant, or alternatively, a significant amount of leases that I have signed as a renter always include a 24-hour provision that a landlord can enter my property upon 24-hour, 48, whatever amount of notice is necessary to either go with administrative search warrant, which would be, I said it first, but that would be the last option, consent by the tenant, or the landlord providing the notice under their lease that they need to enter the property, and then that could cause the inspection.
And it could be, but that's a legal part that we surely need to know, because I know that a landlord can in fact be arrested if they try to enter a property, that because of the fact that once you have agreed and money has changed hands, yes, your name's on the title, the landowner's name's on the title of that property, but no, as long as that monthly bill is being paid, it is not the landowner's.
Yeah, and I think, again, I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
And this needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and I agree, and that can be something that can be double-checked if the council decides for that to happen, and I could add in some provisions that can maybe try and settle any issue like that, or we can discuss that at another time if the decision is to ever bring back a rental inspection program.
Secondly, it was mentioned of the codes that's involved in a rental inspection. Referring to codes, it was referred to by Councilwoman Davidson. And I just want to refer back to the fact that we already have those codes in place. It does refer back to codes. We have them in place. We need, we've always, for many years, and I've never faltered on this, we've for many years needed codes enforcement. I think we've got a provision where we can have better codes enforcement. I think that amounts to personnel. So I do believe that our codes are in place. I think we're layering over our own codes. I just don't see it being necessary if we get our personnel in place, which needs to happen for the outside as well as inside. It just makes you more visual, more easy to call, somebody to call, and I believe that we've got it in place to do that. I also think that in entering, if it were to be in entering someone's home, I just think it's way overstepping the privacy of our citizens' lives. I just think we're stepping way out there. Thank you for probably allowing me more than 3 minutes.
Well, we deserve that. That's okay. I was the final, and I was a yes vote. And I have all the data on who the landlords are. And it's amazing when you look at it and you see of the 137 landlords that do not live in Belton, some of the big groups that are here in Belton. And I've shared this with a few council people that come by the office every once in a while. You'll see that some of the people, the big ones, are like in Michigan. And the reason I even bring that up is because the analogy is to what we're seeing in Kansas City, where the people, the big problems are people that don't live in our area. And I think that's a valid reason. So I'll just, the purpose of the program is obviously the goal of the program to protect the health, the safety, and welfare of our residents. And again, if you go back to any business, our fire marshals go in and inspect any business, including schools, etc., and find things that are dangerous. And with that, maintain attractive, desirable neighborhoods, ensure minimum standards for the interior of residential buildings. With that, I found up some news ones. This was November 12th, Clinton, Missouri Fire Department investigating deadly fire that happened Tuesday morning. Fire broke out at 2 a.m. near South 3rd Street, East Franklin. 45-year-old, 27-year-old, and the woman's 4-year-old daughter all died. The cause of the fire is still under investigation, but Chief Huff said the fire marshal is looking into whether a heating unit could have sparked the fire. Now, the fire chief did say they did not have working smoke alarms. These apartments are hardwired with battery backups, but sometimes they go bad for one reason or another, he said. He said that he's not sure why the smoke alarm had been taken down, but he believes it would have saved the lives of these people. Now, again, you know, it's not a fine document so far. I think there needs to be lots of discussion. But I do know that Councilwoman Peak had a story about her having a, what did you not have or did have that probably saved your lives? You had a,
Carbon monoxide.
and how did that happen?
It
How
went
did that-
off.
It went off, and what was the cause of the alarm?
There was a leak downstairs in the basement from our, they think it was from the hot water heater.
And what would the potential have been if the alarm hadn't been there?
My kids would have found us probably dead then whenever they came over.
Yeah, and it's serious. It is a serious item. And, do I want to lose constitutional rights? No. No, by far, no. I think that, yes, the inspections will help, and sometimes it's really true that by being codes inspectors, how many houses do we have in Belton? It's astronomical. How many rental properties? It's bizarre to think that we don't have people that are living in dirt and filth in terrible situations. The problem is you can't just identify it from outside. Do I want to lose constitutional rights? No. I think there's some fine work that we can get done here in a sort of like Independence's Rental Ready program where you can go in and find it. I know that our staff has worked on this program for 3 years. For 3 years, we've worked on this. And all I'm saying is it's a democracy. We can vote anywhere we want, and I'm not trying to intimidate anybody by any means. But I know that there's a lot of rental property in our city that needs help and is dangerous and unsafe and unsanitary. And I'm done. So with that, the last point that I have is my final question. Do you want to come back before the council for discussion? All I'm asking is for discussion. No, it's not a final document or anything like that. Do we want to have a discussion? So I'll start with you, Councilman Van Winkle. We'll come around this way. Yes. Yes.
Not this year.
Not this year?
Not for a while.
Well, this year or not for a while?
6 months.
Okay. Councilman Finn?
Last meeting of the year.
Yeah, good point, good
Yes,
point.
I'm open to discussing anything. Absolutely, I'm not turning away from this.
Is that a yes or a no?
I'll discuss it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davidson?
Yes.
Councilman Peak?
Yes.
And the mayor says yes. So we will discuss it in some variety. And we'll try to get you stuff like the stuff that, the epistles that we had tonight. Let's send those out and concerns too. Let's share this stuff. And again, this is not etched in stone, but I know that staff's spending a lot of time working on this stuff. And I think we have our flying orders now. And I think I can be quiet and say, we're going to bring it back to talk about some more. All right? With that, is there anything else that you have?
Not on this item.
Okay, so, going to adjourn the work session, and now we're going to call the regular meeting back to order. Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item be taken from consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. No personal appearances, ordinances. A motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2019-60.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri approving the agency participation agreement among the Mid-America Regional Council, Traffic Technology Services Incorporated, and the City of Belton, Missouri in conjunction with the data authorization agreement between MARC and TTS to provide real-time traffic data at zero cost to the city.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Have the roll call, please.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember Davidson,
Aye.
Finn,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
and Trutzel.
Aye. The motion passes. B, a motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2019-61.
An ordinance approving a fire protection agreement between the City of Belton and the Mount Pleasant Fire Protection District.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Councilman, Mayor and council members, I did want to let you know that we had a discussion, Chief Saps had ongoing discussion with Mount Pleasant, and there are just 2 tweaks that are not substantial, substantive to the agreement, but I did want to let you know what those will be. And that is currently the term under number 5 states that it's for a 5-year agreement with an option for a 2-year extension. This would allow for the initial 5-year agreement and 2 2-year options instead of just 1 2-year option. And then the second change that will occur in that is under item number 7, entitled Service Charges. This outlines when the payments would occur. Previously, we had 4 payments in the year with a true-up at the end, so a 5th payment. And instead, what they're going to do is do 4 payments with that 4th payment being the true-up payment. And so just streamlines it for the fire district a little bit. And those are the only 2 items that are changing in the agreement.
Do we need to have anything changed, or are we all right?
No, I mean, those are the 2 changes.
Cool. So we're legitimate, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Any discussion? I'd entertain, what?
Roll call.
Do I need to? Okay. Roll call.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Trutzel.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
Savage.
Aye.
Finn.
Aye.
Van Winkle.
Aye.
Lathrop.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Peak.
Aye.
The motion passes. Excuse me. See a motion approving both readings of bill number 2019-62.
An ordinance determining and declaring the necessity of acquiring for public use temporary construction and permanent utility easements for the construction and maintenance of stormwater system improvements related to the repair and upgrade of 2 stormwater culverts under East Cambridge Road, generally located in Section 13, Township 46 North, Range 33 West, all in the City of Belton, Cass County, Missouri. Authorizing the city and its designees to negotiate for the purpose of acquiring the easement by contract of condemnation, and authorizing the city attorney and his designees to institute condemnation proceedings if such interest in land cannot be acquired by purchase through good faith negotiations.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Councilman Lathrop.
I have a couple of things on this. Why did the company doing the surveying put 179th Street on there?
We talked about that also. 70 is Cambridge called 79th Street?
179th.
179th, I'm saying.
Well, it might be there, but it's never been called that I
I
know
never
of.
called it that either. So that was one of my questions, isn't it?
And it's,
Michael, yes?
So it all goes down to whatever map and legal documents that the surveyor is using. And I am not a certified surveyor in the state of Missouri, so I default to whatever they put on their legal descriptions.
Sure.
well, I was looking at those maps and I couldn't figure out where it was. I had
I
to go
did
back
too.
and read some of this. And
You're absolutely right.
And another thing is on your no estimate on the cost or where the money's coming from.
Do we have an answer for that?
All of this would come from the bond funds, and we haven't started negotiations. We will, of course, start with requesting donations, as both of these properties would be improvements to the property owners. Property owners that are involved, there's only 2. It is Mr. Graham on the majority of properties and Salee Development. And from there, we would take the monies that had initially been, I believe there was a breakdown on the stormwater funding that was shown for the projects as they were broken out per project. And we're still basing our estimates on that, but we still have to go into negotiations.
Well, always before you've had the chart, we've had so much money and it's coming from here to cover that. And you had 0 on everything.
And so what we're hoping that in this situation, as Michael has alluded to, that it would be in good faith. As you'll recall, we just recently had another repair that was done on Cambridge that also involved the same landowner, and we were able to acquire that without any problems.
Michael?
I know, I'm used to seeing where the money's gonna come from and an estimate of the cost. And we got nothing on this one.
When I was reading the documents, I thought I saw Mr. Jones. I didn't ever see Mr. Salim. Was there a Jones? Was it a farm or was it a?
There's, it calls out James and Tony Graham.
James, okay.
That's the Grahams.
Okay. Got it. Have you got everything you need so
Yes.
far? Any other questions? Comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. C, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-62. Good luck.
An ordinance determining and declaring the necessity of acquiring for public use temporary construction and permanent utility easements for the construction and maintenance of storm water system improvements related to the repair and upgrade of 2 storm water culverts under East Cambridge Road, generally located in Section 13, Township 46 North, Range 33 West, all in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, authorizing the city and its designees to negotiate for the purpose of acquiring the easement by contract of condemnation and authorizing the city attorney and his designees to institute condemnation proceedings if such interest in land cannot be acquired by purchase through good faith negotiations.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. And a good job, Donna. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, we have the roll call.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Finn,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
and Trutzel.
Aye. That motion passes. No resolutions this evening? City Council liaison reports, Park?
Oh, that's me. Hold on. You're probably tired of hearing me talk. You won't want to miss our last kids' night out of the year. Kids, bring your pillow and blanket, wear your pajamas, and get ready for some cozy winter fun. Join us for our Kids' Night Out Pajama Jam this Saturday, December 14th, from 5:30 to 10 p.m. at High Blue. There also will be pizza, swimming, hot cocoa, cookie decorating, and a Christmas movie. Kids Night Out is for kids 5 to 12 years of age. Cost is $20 for the first child and $15 for each additional if registered by this Friday, December 13th. Cost goes up by $5 on Saturday. Looking for a way to keep your toddler active over the next winter? Yes, I am. Check out Tiny Tots Basketball for 3 to 5 year olds. Participants will learn skills including dribbling, passing, shooting, and defense. It's a 5-session program, and participants will participate in a skills competition during the final session. There are several program options: January 6th, 13th, 20th, 27th, and February 3rd, Mondays 6 to 6:45, Mondays 6:45 to 7:30. And then January 9th, 18th, 25th, and February 1st and 8th. Saturdays 9 to 9:45, and Saturdays 9:45 to 10:30. There's a minimum of 10 participants per session. If we are unable to meet the minimum requirement, it may be necessary to combine sessions, so please register online at teamsideline.com/Belton, or send your questions to KEVING@beltonparks.org. Thank you.
Wow. Nothing else from Park?
Maybe they'll.
Okay. Mayor's communication, I was jotting some things down. Carolyn, I'm gonna put you on a spot for a second. Hope I wake you up. The day we did the chamber events, we had the chamber awards today. Could you refresh everybody? Our chamber has done a great job. Diane Huckshorn, as the chamber, they have their new, what I'm gonna say, their leaders this year, the officers. What were the awards today, some of the awards?
The one that comes to mind first was the Award for Excellence, which was given to North Point Development. There were a couple of star awards. I wish that I had my program from today because I would be able to read them, but there was
You wadded yours up when it didn't win the door prize, probably.
no. Bright Car Wash and
That's one of them.
who was the other one? Oh, yes, and McCowan Gordon won an award as well, and I don't know which award it was, but yeah, it was a great turnout. The chamber did announce the Belton Community Foundation has been formed for the Belton Chamber. I sit on that board as well as the 2020 board for the Chamber of Commerce.
That was good stuff. It's, yes, were you going to say something? I thought you were giving me your hand signal.
No, sorry.
It was an outstanding at Loch Lloyd this year, and it was well attended, and they're doing a great job. Fire awards are coming up, Chief. When are our fire awards, and what night and where? And
It's going to be December 18th over at Memorial Station, starting at 6 o'clock.
And what kind of awards are we giving out this year?
Well, we don't even know all of those yet, but we always historically give a firefighter of the year and an officer of the year at the very least.
Well, the one tonight was pretty special in itself.
was cool.
What a good team effort. I'm really excited about that. Also, with the theater, I'm sorry, I'm going to come back to Park. The theater had their first, they're still doing their show, right?
Yeah, that's on. There we go. That's not Park, but yes. Main Street Theater is currently in the middle of a production. It's called Sorry Wrong Chimney. It's about the holidays, and their opening night was last weekend. And so you can catch them every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the next couple of weeks. And I didn't talk about Mayor's Christmas tree lighting. I thought you'd want to.
Well, that was true. And again, we were talking about how much money was raised this year, and it was really $12,000 to the Belton Association, for Welfare Association. That's pretty special. Really happy. City Manager, you're up.
Yes, the only report I have for tonight is to look at Michael Christopher and say thank you. Many people know that Michael's leaving the city. He's moving back home. And Friday will be his last day with the city. Michael, you are leaving the city in such a better shape and making us more aware of our infrastructure. You've been a wonderful acting city engineer and acting and interim public works director, and I just want to say thank you for your service and everything that you've done, and just say farewell, and we wish you the best with everything. This is his last meeting, so thanks.
Michael. Okay, with that, other business. Anybody? Okay. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to enter executive session, to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610-02112 and legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-02111, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Davidson. Aye. Peak. Aye. Van Winkle.
Aye.
Lathrop.
Aye.
Finn.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Savage.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Trutzel.
All right. If it passes, we're adjourned. Thank you.